Diosado Cabello Rondon is the name of one of the most powerful and feared men in modern Latin American politics. Or at least everyone thought he was, because now he is crumbling under pressure. Diosado is a man with blood on his hands, controversy all around him, and a human rights violator. And throughout the time, he climbed the ranks and became the right-hand man of Maduro and the biggest enforcer for him. Diosado Cabello was born on April 15, 1963, in Furial, Monagues, a state in Venezuela. He wasn't a politician at first. He was a military man. He studied at the Venezuelan Military Academy, and like Hugo Chavez, he became a part of this secret group of officers who wanted to overthrow the government of Carlos Andrés Pérez. Right from the start, Cabello's route into power wasn't through a vote. He was gonna get it with force. Cabello was a sketchy military man, and like other sketchy guys, they hang around with each other. So him and Chavez were allies in this group. In 1992, Cabello and Chavez attempted a coup against the president Carlos Andrés Pérez, and it fails. That failure would have ended a lot of people's political lives, but not theirs. They became symbols of resistance because they went to jail and they got out. They used that moment as political capital. In Cabello's mind, they didn't lose because they were wrong. They lost because it wasn't their time. And that moment plants the psychological seed that will follow Cabello for the rest of his life. Force equals legitimacy, not debate, not ballouts, but force. That's his mentality. Chavez and the failed coup that he executed earned him a lot of followers, and throughout time, he built his empire, with Cabello playing a role in the background. When Hugo Chavez wins the presidency in 1998, Cabello doesn't just walk into a position. He becomes one of the central pillars of the new Bolivarian revolution. He cycles through a jaw-dropping number of high-ranking roles. Director of CONATEL, the national telecom regulator. Then he moves to the Minister of Public Works, and then to the Minister of Interior and Justice. Then he moves to Vice President, and then President of the National Assembly, Governor of the Miranda State, and then President of the PSUV, the ruling Socialist Party. And later, he becomes the head of the National Constituent Assembly. So he gets all these roles just because he was with Chavez. But after all those roles, Cabello earns the most important one, for him at least, and that was a security chief, the one who ensures internal control. He's the guy who decides who gets promoted in the army, intelligence, and militia networks, and who gets shut down. At this point in time, Cabello is not just a politician. He was an enforcer, the person who built and ran the repression machine, and that made him indispensable. Before we move on with this story, we will talk about something interesting that happened in 2002 with him. We will talk about the April coup attempt, where he played a role against Chavez. There were massive protests and chaos in 2002. Military commanders arrested Chavez, and Pedro Carmona declared himself president. Then something interesting happened that night. Cabello, the vice president at that time, is installed as the acting president for about 4 hours before Chavez gets released and then becomes the president again. This coup is interesting and confusing at the same time, because we don't know if Cabello truly saved Chavez that day, or did he really try to overthrow the man that built his career, and then when pressure got to him, he crumbled and gave it back. As you can see, his political approach was built on violence, repression, and confrontation. He wasn't organizing communities, and he wasn't winning hearts. He was controlling people through fear. When protesters took to the streets, he didn't try to negotiate with them. He cracked them down. When journalists reported on corruption, he threatened them and imprisoned them. And if you were a politician that was against them, he will get him into jail or even worse. In 2025, his regime arrested dozens of opposition figures, including a senior lawyer close to Maria Corina Machado, on accusations of conspiracy and terrorism. This is a classic authoritarian behavior, not leadership, and it reinforced something in Cabello's mind. Control equals power, fear equals stability, and repression gave you a victory. But here's the trap with that logic. If all your victories come against unarmed civilians, gangs, and protests, and politicians that are just trying to do their job, you start to believe you're stronger than you really are. You start to think you are unbeatable, and that's when the bully mentality starts to kick in. When Chavez died in 2013, there was confusion about who would succeed him. Many expected Cabello to take over, but instead, Nicolás Maduro becomes president. Maduro was a weaker man. Cabello was a stronger man. He was a military man. Maduro was just a bus driver. And here's where things get interesting. Cabello could have challenged Maduro. He could have used his power base, militia control, and networks to take the leadership from him. But he didn't. He backed Maduro, and in return, he was given more direct control of the security apparatus, police intelligence, militias, and coercive instruments of the state. This wasn't loyalty, this was a strategy for him. Cabello made his real power about control of force, not the presidency, and that gave him a very dangerous advantage. While Cabello accumulated power at home, the United States and other governments began accusing him of criminal activities. The U.S. Treasury and Justice Department accused him of corruption, extortion, money launderings, and ties to the so-called Cartel of the Suns, allegations that he denied. As of 2025, the U.S. put a $25 million bounty on him for drug trafficking and related charges, making him one of the most wanted men in the Western Hemisphere. That's a powerful sign. The U.S. doesn't issue that kind of reward unless they seriously consider you dangerous. Over time, Cabello's rhetoric got more and more extreme. On television, he would talk about anti-U.S. imperialism, endless resistance, threats of retaliation, and we won't bow down. That's what he says. These weren't statements from a statesman. These were statements from a bully who has never been challenged in a real fight. That's the difference between fighting an unarmed crowd and fighting a superpower like the United States of America. And everything changed for Cabello on January 3rd, 2026, after the United States launched an operation in Caracas and captured President Nicolás Maduro and his wife, leaving him hopeless. And now, suddenly, Cabello's tough talks turned into talks about damage on his country that he is not willing to see. He's on TV urging the people not to despair. He calls for calm instead of war. He doesn't call for global conflict like he was. He's now on survival mode. And that's the real truth about some bullies. After the capture of Maduro, Venezuela is in chaos, politically and socially. Vice President Delcy Rodriguez is declared the interim president, backed by the military and the Supreme Court. Rodriguez may formally hold office right now, but Cabello controls the guns, the police, the intelligence apparatus, and even the militias. And that's the real power. And as analysts now say, Cabello might be the top hardliner still on the ground, holding the levers of security, while Rodriguez might try a diplomatic shift later. It's a power struggle, not just between Venezuela and the United States, but inside the Venezuela regime itself. And Cabello might not trust any of them completely, not not even the interim president, and I know damn well he's not doing that. So after all of this, after the coups, the armies, the prisons, the inner circle politics, corruptions, and accusations that he has, the militias that he has taken over control, and tough talk on the TV, what is Diosado Cabello? He's not a patriot of Venezuela. He is not a revolutionary hero for sure. And he is not a humble servant like he claimed to be. He is a power broker who discovered early on that force, not legitimacy, was his currency. He became good at controlling societies through fear. He became good at shutting down dissent. He became good at keeping armies loyal and civilians scared. But here's the thing, real strength isn't measured by how many people you intimidate. Real strength is tested when the world finally fights back. And when that happens, when the United States came in, the external pressure hit actual institutions. Cabello, tough guy image, softened up and came into survival mode. He didn't become a hero like he said he was. He didn't become a revolutionary hero like he claimed to be. He became a man facing the limits of his own bully tactics. And that's the real lesson here. Bullies only look tough until someone tougher walks in. Diosado Cabello spent his life beating people who couldn't hit back, and when they did, he would maybe off him. When the rules changed on him, his roar stopped. And that's not strength, that was survival kicking in again. And now that his friend Maduro is in prison, I doubt that he will try to become the president of Venezuela. He has to give it up. There's no way around it, or else he's either gonna face imprisonment or something worse.